Welcome to the Taste of Place podcast, where we share inspiring stories from chefs, artisans, and leaders in the culinary and travel industries. Join us as we meet and learn from these unique and fascinating characters in our field. I'm your host, Eric Wolf. Thanks for listening. Welcome to episode 70 of the Taste of Place podcast. Today we will be speaking with Allie Bahn. Allie is a distinguished food allergy travel expert and travel consultant. With a focus on empowering travelers with severe food allergies, Allie offers invaluable guidance through her blog and consulting work. Her expertise stems from personal experience growing up with severe food allergies and having traveled extensively, including living abroad for many years. Allie also consults with hotels and restaurants to improve their awareness and inclusivity for those with food allergies. She educates through online courses and shares her insights as a travel and lifestyle writer. Her work ensures that others can enjoy safe and enriching travel experiences. Here's our conversation with Allie. Well, we are really excited to be speaking with you in the studio today, Allie. Thank you very much for joining our Taste of Place podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am curious to know how you got interested in travel, because if you look at your CV, your work history, and so on, and you really have done a lot in travel, how did you get interested in it?
It really started from childhood. I received a lot of postcards from family members that were traveling. My grandparents were big travelers. My uncle was on TV as a veterinarian and did a lot of travel. And so I was exposed from a young age. And then my family would travel, but we didn't travel a ton internationally when I was little, mostly domestically. And I think I was just always very curious as a kid and just wanted to experience everything. So that's where it started. And it's just grown and evolved since then.
Okay, excellent. And when I look at your background and everything, obviously there's a strong presence or theme of allergies. Tell us about how you got interested in the allergies.
So I've had life-threatening food allergies since I was basically 10 months old, was when I was first diagnosed. And so my entire memory is of having food allergies. So it just became my normal. And my parents were really big proponents in making everything work around my food allergies, so that we just did all the regular things that anyone else would do, but just sort of adapted them so that I could do them safely. So I was always raised to just sort of make it work and just have it be sort of part of my normal life. And back when I was growing up, there really wasn't anyone. I didn't know a single person until I was traveling actually at 16 on a group trip, and I met somebody else with food allergies, but I didn't have anyone else in my classes growing up or summer camps or sports or activities. I didn't know a single person my age. My dad has food allergies, so in my family, I knew him. But besides that, I wasn't exposed to other people who had food allergies. So it was just something that I was used to and dealt with. But when I was in college, I realized the prevalence of food allergies had really gone up. My sister is 7 years younger than me, and she has a nut allergy. I have peanuts, tree nuts, fish, shellfish, potato, banana, kiwi, a whole bunch of food allergies. But she had the nut allergy, and she had a few other kids in her class also growing up who had some food allergies. And so she wasn't alone in that. And so in college, I was really curious about that. And I was a journalism major and decided to do an independent study my senior year and do a film project on talking to families who had kids with food allergies and just learning sort of how they manage. And, it was sort of felt like a different world from what I grew up in. And I went to a conference actually during that year, and I was at this table with a whole group of moms who had kids with food allergies. And they were so amazed that I had done all the normal things, gone to school, summer camp, went to birthday parties, traveled. I mean, that was like mind blowing to them. And they really wanted me to find a way to share more about that. And, they were just so impressed and also kind of relieved to know that I had, had a pretty normal life growing up and just had sort of made, my food allergies just part of my normal. And And so that was sort of the impetus for starting my blog eventually in 2008 and sharing my story, with whoever, I could help to to understand food allergies better. And that's really how it all began, was that independent study. And now, I've been a part of the food allergy community in many various ways over the years since then. Besides, writing, I've also, I also do freelance writing on food allergies for the largest online magazine for food allergy, lifestyle, and travel, and the news as well. And I share as much as I can online to help people living with food allergies to just know how to manage safely. I mean, for me, it wasn't something that felt overwhelming or stressful. Certainly, there are moments that are anxiety producing with food allergies, but overall, and I think the way that I was raised and the way my parents treated it, it was just something that you had to manage, and that was it. There were these ways to do it, and that's what I did. And I think for a lot of people that that's not the same for them, and so being able to share how I manage it and the strategies and tools that I use, I think has helped people hopefully over the years to adapt those strategies themselves, and hopefully become more confident with living with food allergies.
Ellie, I can't imagine living with so many allergies. I mean, that you mentioned potato allergy. That alone would be just devastating. I mean, not to be able to eat French fries, I couldn't possibly imagine what that would be like.
That's what one of my best friends always says. I mean, since we were kids, whenever we would meet somebody that didn't know about my allergies, she'd be like, and she even has potato allergies, so she can't eat French fries. I was like, yeah,
Wow.
I know. But hey, I think you learn to find other foods that you enjoy, and you don't really know what you're missing out in, because I don't. I have a vague memory of having potato when I was younger and having a reaction, but I don't really, I have an idea of what it tastes like, but I don't feel like I'm missing out, I guess, because it's not something
Yeah.
that I eat.
I guess a parallel would be, well, comparing a person who's been blind all their life versus someone who became blind while they were living. And
Mm.
I just can't imagine. I mean, I've not had that situation, and it sounds like it's actually really challenging. I mean, but you've coped with it well. Would you say it's had a tremendous impact on your life, or what kind of impact has it had on you as a person, as a consumer, and as a traveler?
It definitely has had a big impact. I think by sharing my story and by the work that I do, it's had a greater impact as time has gone on. Um, not so impactful anymore in like an anxiety producing way, or in something preventing me from living my life, but more just as something I think about more frequently on a daily basis, because of the work that I do and what I share. But I think for a lot of people, and certainly when I was growing up in certain social situations, especially, it can be really challenging. You don't, especially when you're, say, middle school through high school and beginning of college, you just don't want to stand out or be different. You really want to, feel like you can fit in. And with food allergies, that can be really challenging. You're always asking what the ingredients are in something. You feel bad if you're asking too many questions, but you need to know the answers. You don't want to impose on people, but you want to be included. So it's a lot of trying to find a balance, I think, and that can be really hard. Overall, they've made a positive impact. I think that there's a lot of qualities that, by having food allergies, I think I'm certainly more aware of people that have other challenges, and hopefully more empathetic, more just, yeah, just sort of more aware of things around me. I think it does give some different character traits that other people might not have, because of having to be more responsible since I was a child and all growing up. And I think that can be really challenging for kids, but I think it gives you a lot of great tools as grow and become an adult. So I think that there's a positive with having them, in that way.
What about you as a traveler then? So let's say that you're traveling to a new country where you don't even speak the language, and we can use the translation apps and everything, but I just can't imagine going to, I mean, for example, somewhere in Eastern Europe where I can't even read any of the languages, going in and saying, "Hi, I want to eat in your restaurant," and using Google Translate or whatever, Deep will be like, and I can't eat potatoes or eggs or mustard or wheat and I mean, how do you do it?
Yeah, I do think that as someone who loves to travel so much and experience as much as I can in a culture, the food piece is hard for me because I love food. Like, I really enjoy eating. I love trying new things when I can. And so, when I go to a country where I don't speak the language, I have a card that I'll translate, which I use generally in the US in English when I go to a restaurant that explains my food allergies and cross contact and just making sure that someone will use a clean pan and clean utensils when preparing my food because I'm allergic to these things. And so I will translate that in the local language of wherever I'm traveling. That is a huge help, a major tool that has made such a difference. I also think, though, that it can be kind of something that prevents me sometimes from being able to try new things because it can also, depending on the restaurant experience or the chef's experience, might be something that makes them more nervous to feed me. So it can be, it's a great tool, and I wouldn't be able to eat somewhere without it. But it also can be a bit challenging as well to be able to eat new foods or try new things because of the apprehension that goes around the food allergies.
Have you ever been in a situation where the wait person just kind of brushed you off and said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," and then you had an allergic reaction?
In Madrid, I this was years ago now, and I've had much better experiences since then. But I had given them my card, and they were like, "Yes, we understand." I ordered a very simple pasta dish with just like a tomato sauce base, like a very tomatoey base, and um, it came out, and I always like look at my food, make sure seems fine, and I took a bite, and I felt something hard in my mouth, and which was unexpected as to what I was eating, and spit it out immediately, and it was an entire walnut in my food. Although I didn't think, I was just like my first few bites of the pasta, and I didn't eat the walnut. And it was covered in sauce. I spit it out and then had to just go sit at an emergency room, and just I took some antihistamines and waited to make sure that I didn't end up having a more severe reaction. And thankfully, I did not. So these, I don't know exactly what happened there or how that happened, but there are things that do happen sometimes, and so I think it's important to be prepared for those things. So I always carry plenty of epinephrine, and I know what my plan is in case something like that happens. I know how to find an emergency room if I need to, and so yeah, there's always sort of a plan in place in the background, I guess.
We have a lot of chefs and other cooks and food service professionals that listen to the podcast, and I'm wondering, could you explain what happened at the restaurant after you had this reaction? Did you go back? Were there any repercussions? What happened after this all settled?
Yeah, so gosh, I was quite young then. I was maybe 25, 26, and you know, my immediate reaction was to take antihistamine and know that I probably needed to go sit in an ER just in case something happened. I didn't think that I had actually consumed any nuts because I'd had such few bites, and it was an entire full walnut. It was not like chopped up or anything. There were no missing pieces on the nut, anything like that. Um, the waiter, I would say that there wasn't the easiest communication between us as far as language goes. Even though, it was, sometimes when I travel, finding an Italian restaurant will be usually the easiest for me, especially if I'm just, exhausted from explaining my allergies, if I've been traveling for a long time. And so that's why we ended up in an Italian restaurant that night. We had done tapas and other, more Spanish type cuisine, but that night. It was just like a needed break. And so, I did not go back to the restaurant. I told them what happened as we were leaving, and that, and tried to explain that I have to go to the hospital. This is very serious. I don't think that they took it very seriously. And, back then I don't think that I even really necessarily thought to contact them again afterward. It wasn't like an easy thing. And we were leaving the next day to go to Valencia. And I think I just, I hoped that they understood when we were leaving, but they didn't seem like very remorseful of the situation, or like really like they understood how serious it was. This was, over 10, 15, probably like 15 years ago now. So, or not quite, but, it was a long time ago. So I think food allergy awareness has improved significantly. Madrid, actually, I was there a few years ago and was really impressed with how much it had improved. I had great meals out there on my last trip. And so I do really think with the prevalence of food allergies, people are much more aware. And for, the chefs that come on your show and that are probably listening to this at this point, probably, in 2024, are probably much more aware than there ever was back then. A lot more, there's just so much more awareness of food allergies. It's still, depending on the country you're in, where there's, some places where they rarely hear about food allergies. Asia, for example, certain countries have been more challenging for me to eat at. And I think that it's just sort of about education and awareness. And if there are places in the world that don't really see that very often, then they just don't know. And so it's really about trying to, teach people as best you can how important it is and how severe food allergies actually are.
Well, I hope you didn't pay as you were fleeing the restaurant, racing to the hospital.
I was with two friends, and I don't remember. I honestly, I would have to check with them. I don't remember what happened. I did not pay. I'm not sure what happened. I think we left right away because I don't think we even, and nobody ate their food because it had just come out. So
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, I think you're right that chefs tend to be a little more aware of things today, and this is actually a topic that we talk about in our culinary tourist guide certification and training course that we do for culinary tourist guides around the world, because food allergies, also food sensitivities or preferences, halal, kosher, what people prefer to eat or what they don't want to eat. I have Jewish friends who are bacon flexible. I mean, there's the whole gamut of different preferences and food allergies that are around in the world. And my question to you would be, what would be your favorite destination as someone who has so many food allergies? Where do you always look forward to going to, where you know that you're not going to have too much trouble with the food you order?
It's a great question. I lived in Italy for years, and Italy was definitely the easiest place that I lived with food allergies. I think living there too, you know where to go, what restaurants are going to take it seriously. But also whenever I visit, and I'm usually in Europe easily a few times a year, and often in Italy, and I definitely look forward to that. I think it's definitely been the easiest place for me, living wise, and I've lived in other places in the world as well. And Italy has definitely been the easiest. So I definitely look forward to that. We'll actually be there in a few weeks. And so I'm excited to go out to dinner there. But there's certain meals, I guess, that I remember, or certain experiences food wise that I've had that I think stand out. I had a great meal in Cannes one time, and the chef came out, he talked to us, he wanted to make sure that I had a great meal and that I didn't miss out on anything. I was able to eat dessert, which is such a rare thing for me. And so it's really, it's sort of like these sometimes memorable meals too when I'm traveling, where the chef has gone above and beyond to make sure that I have a great experience. Those really stand out. I was just in Helsinki. I was just in Finland in the winter and in January, and they were overall really great with food allergies. Celiac is very prevalent there, and they understood the food allergies quite well. I didn't have any difficult experiences dining out there. People were receptive. I used to get, and this still happens sometimes, but I used to get turned away a lot I'd go into a restaurant and show them my card and ask, if they'd be able to accommodate me in some way. And especially when I was younger, this happened frequently that I would be turned away, and it's changed so much since then. It's still something that, I have to be aware of. So there are these moments that are really amazing in certain places overall, like Italy, or when I was just in Finland, are really overall, I think, quite impressive. But it's also like certain experiences too, I think, that are better than others.
Well, it's not a hardship to go to Italy for food, that's for sure. So I'm sure you ate well for sure.
Yes.
We need to wrap up soon, but are there any kind of final thoughts that you might have for our listeners, whether they're travelers or chefs or anyone in the food and beverage tourism industry? What are your thoughts, your final parting words for them?
Sure. I think, as my mission to sort of be a liaison between like the travel industry and the food allergy community, I think it's so important on both ends for communication to be clear. I sort of see it as a partnership, between the person or the guest with the food allergies and the restaurant being able to work together to make it a good experience. So that's why it's so important to me to help educate people with food allergies on how to be clear about their food allergies and their needs in a, kind and well communicated way. And then also on the, hotel and restaurant side, to make sure that they understand the severity and are able to, do their best to accommodate those of us with food allergies. I think it's hard sometimes to make those changes in the kitchen. I understand, it can be so busy and there's a lot going on, especially during, the middle of a mealtime or something like that. And I think by trying to help people understand, letting restaurants know ahead of time about food, they're coming with their food allergies, or different ways to manage these things so that the communication is better. I hope to be able to have more people with food allergies have great restaurant experiences. And so I think it's just sort of conveying this openness on both sides to communicate well and understand how important it is for both.
I agree. Take the time to really communicate and understand your guest. I think in a world where things happen so quickly, a server might be inclined to just race through taking your order. And unfortunately, that could actually lead to someone's death if that server didn't take things seriously. So, the moral of the story here, I think, is to take the time to get to know your guest, really understand them, confirm what you've heard that and have them confirm back to you that what they have said to you is correct, and then that message should be translated back to the kitchen. So a lot of communication needs to happen. Yeah, and I think that that's my takeaway at least. So, but Allie, thank you so much for your time. Anyone who wants to get in touch with Allie, we will put the contact information and her blog in the description below, so you'll be able to contact her via her website, look at her training courses that she offers, subscribe to newsletter, and follow her on social media. Allie, thank you so much again. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much, Eric. I appreciate it. It's so fun.
That's it for this episode of the Taste of Place podcast. This episode is brought to you by the World Food Travel Association and its Culinary Capitals certification program for destinations. We'd like to hear from you. We invite you to share your ideas, questions, and thoughts about the podcast by emailing us at help@worldfoodtravel.org. Or you can connect with us and comment about the episode on major social media platforms. Special thanks to our guest, Allie Bahn. And of course, thanks to you for joining us. I'm Eric Wolf, wishing you a safe, happy, and productive month ahead. That's it for this episode of the Taste of Place podcast. This episode is brought to you by the World Food Travel Association and its Culinary Capitals program for destinations. This episode is brought to you by the World Food Travel Association and its Culinary Capitals certification program for destinations. We'd like to hear from you. We invite you to share your ideas, questions, and thoughts about the podcast by emailing us at help@worldfoodtravel.org, or you can connect with us and comment about the episode on major social media platforms. Special thanks to our guest, Allie Bahn. And of course, thanks to you for joining us. I'm Eric Wolf, wishing you a safe, happy, and productive month ahead.